so what you have in front of you, again, just kind of to tee up here as we're leading into session, and for those of you that are heading up to Tallahassee for Palm Beach County Days, we just wanted to go over what has come out as our top priority items. Of course, we're monitoring many more things that are reflected here, but just to review some of the things that are on our list, we have a couple appropriations requests that we have put in. One is enhancing critical incident response capability of our first responders. So we have three key assets that would be purchasing for fire rescue and police. That has been sponsored by Representative Rick Roth and Senator Bobby Powell. We're asking for $525,000, which is a little less than half of our total request. Also, we're at...
excuse me, one of the things that we've learned is that if you go in and are willing to do part of the costs, they are a little more open to funding a partial amount for the project. So each of these projects you'll see are more than what we're asking for, because we're saying we'll pay the rest of it.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Mayor. That's really, our key strategy as we're putting forth appropriations concepts. We want to maintain our reputation as a city that has skin in the game, and are good stewards of funds. And, in this instance, we're putting in funds, as is the Department of Justice, for a new police boat. But this is over and above, we have a $4.5 million investment into public safety this fall that we've committed to. So, we're painting the picture that, we're coming to the table and asking the state to partner with us as we're, enhancing our first responders' ability to respond to major incidents.
So, we're not coming to you for the full amount. We're coming to you for a portion of it. We also have a portion of our spending in this area comes from the feds, and then, of course, from local contribution.
Yep. Yes, Commissioner.
Thank you. Just a quick question on that. Do we need to show by resolution that we're willing to fund these before you go up and ask? Is this something that needs to be
Not at this juncture.
approved? Just
Nobody has asked for that or anything.
No. The second project, similar to the first, we're showing significant city investment, is the Rosemary Corridor enhancement. As you all know, the CRA is planning a streetscape design for Rosemary that would be north of Banyan, continuing, concurrent to, what City Place is doing through Rosemary as well. So what we're asking the state for is to help us with the lighting portion of that. We know that that's been a common finding in all the studies in that area. So we're asking the state to partner with us. The CRA altogether is putting in about $2.1 million, so we're asking for $400,000 from the state to help us do enhanced lighting along that corridor. So,
and the other critical piece on this one is that there's a lot of private investment as well. So we have the A-Loft that's going in there, and we have people at City Place that are helping us. So part of what they like to hear in Tallahassee is that there's also private investment.
You bet. So, and big thanks to the CRA here for helping prep us with these points. We're here again. This is just a small look at our commitment to this overall area. The CRA is committing $24 million to the historic Northwest. That's complementary and to this Rosemary enhancement. And we're estimating about $124 million in private investment that's in the queue right now for that corridor. And additionally, this is a complement to the state's commitment to the Sunset Lounge. Altogether, they've committed to $1 million in funding to renovate the Sunset Lounge. So again, we're asking them to partner with us on this, comprehensive revitalization of that corridor. Last, we also chatted with legislators in Tallahassee about our support for increased funding for Narcan for first responders. There is a grant program that's available to municipalities to help offset that cost. Fire Rescue's reported to us that their costs over the last 3 years have increased 50%. It's now about $200,000 a year. So we're advocating to see that grant source replenished. So those are a couple of our key appropriations asks. I think Kimberly will fill us in a couple.
Any questions on those three?
Yes, Commissioner.
It's more of a statement. I sadly report that the deaths from opioid overdoses are up 33% in our county.
In the county.
This year.
That's over last year?
Yes.
Wow, stunning.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. You mentioned that there are other things. Obviously, you just did the big things and hit the highlights. One of the things that the opioid overdoses, when we're seeing responses 1 and 2 times a day at the same location, or 3 times in a week at the same location, is there anything going on or talk up in Tallahassee about how the first responders can move those people into situations which, that out of their
Rehab?
Whether it's wherever they go, but if a person doesn't want to go or stay, they can't. But if they're causing huge increased cost to our rescue, is there some way that we can force them into sort of a treatment facility, or like Baker Act them? If you're looking at, so is anybody looking at doing anything about, fine with the Narcan and funding it, but how are we going to, create that disruptor in the process that we don't have 33% increase year over year of opioid use?
I've not yet seen a bill introduced to that effect, but yeah, Commissioner, please.
So I just want you to know, the Proviso Task Force has been trying to figure out what to do, and we've been working really hard with the recovery community as well for that same reason. Everybody is frustrated because they would like to be able to force people into a position where they have no choice but to get healthy, but they're not, and you can't do it. And it's really just a rights issue. However, in the bill that we have been working on, they've had a little bit of teeth into it for that, but now we lost Jeff Clemens, and we don't have a Democrat yet. Well, we've identified a Democrat, we just haven't had confirmation yet for a sponsor. We have Hager as our in the House, and he pretty much stripped it out. So we're hoping to add back into some things as soon as we get a commitment, but no, you cannot force somebody to. And it's not so much location. I mean, it would be great if you could identify a location, because what's happening is people are really, most of the time, ODing in, parking lots.
Yeah. Public bathrooms.
Yeah, and public bathrooms, and not public bathrooms.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
that will certainly be on our list to monitor our, the recommendations that come out of the task force and any opioid-related bills. We do have a couple other items on our agenda, and a couple key pieces of legislation we wanted to be sure, I know has been top of mind for you all, so just wanted to say a few words about a couple other items on our
Kimberly.
agenda.
So we also visited with Representative Wilhite. He is going to be bringing forward a bill to approve amendment to the special act as it relates to the City of West Palm Beach police pension. There are a couple of changes. I know we did it last year, but we did it again this year as a result of some bargaining and some other cleanup issues. One of the main changes is going to be the multipliers changing to 3%, and that's related to bargaining issues. Bonnie Jensen, the pension lawyer, will be working directly with Representative Wilhite, and that is moving along.
And as you know, we have to do this every time there's a change in the bargaining
Because it's
agreement.
statutory.
Not for
Yes.
firefighters? It's not the...
We have to do firefighters too, don't we?
Well, we don't have any changes to the firefighters
Right.
this year, but if there were,
But
we
we
would
still
bring
have
it
to
through the
do
same
it.
process, yes. And then you would see, once these are done, as you've seen recently in front of the commission, when they're approved at the state level, then we'll amend our regulations to mirror those in the state as well. Additionally, we spoke to some executive folks. We went specifically to the DEP. We continue to talk about Grassy Waters Preserve, and it's the city's goal to bring forward sometime in the middle of next year an application to designate Grassy Waters as an outstanding Florida water. And as you know, it was recently deemed an ARNI, so that should help in our application. But most of those applications are for large lakes and big water body segments, or lakes, rivers, and larger water bodies. So we will be one of a few segments who've applied, and we'll keep you abreast of how that moves forward. Rebecca has another update here talking about, are you going to talk more, or you want to
go
go
ahead.
straight to me?
We have a question. Commissioner James?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. And what kind of protections, or would there be any additional protections to Grassy Waters as a result of that designation?
An outstanding Florida water body designation does up the requirements for construction and things of that nature. So it's a different, it gives greater protections than for other water bodies, yes.
And of course, there are lots of bills that aren't coming from us that we're keeping an eye on and asking our lobbyists to say yay or nay to. And there's a list of those.
Yeah, if time allows, we wanted to just touch on a couple that we feel are, top of mind for us, and I know have been on your minds as well. Chief among them are bills that have been introduced related to CRAs. Kimberly, go ahead and have a few.
And I can go ahead and talk about some of those changes. Both the Senate and the House have a version of a bill that, like last year, again this year, would affect CRAs should they be brought forward and voted in. Both of the bills increase audit, ethics, reporting, and other accountability measures for CRAs. Both bills also require a mirroring of the procurement process to your local procurement process. I can tell you that the House Bill 17 prohibits the creation of new CRAs unless it's through the special act of a legislature. It also...
Small government.
Yeah, so not the local government, but the state would decide whether or not a new CRA would be appropriate.
Right.
It also implements a process to phase out CRAs and doesn't allow extensions or reauthorizations unless there's a supermajority vote of the governing body of that CRA. The Senate bill doesn't have those two provisions, but it does have some other provisions that are somewhat concerning. But as between the two, I think
the better of the two bills is the Senate bill. Yeah.
Correct. But what the Senate bill does, among other things, is it caps administrative spending to 18%, prohibits tax increment spending for festivals, street parties, grants to promote tourism, and socially beneficial programs. It also requires appointment of 2 non-elected members to your CRA board, and it puts in a lobbyist registration process and program that would have to be implemented together with a complaint process and investigation process for not registering correctly.
And we met with Senator Simpson, who is next in line to be the president of the Senate. Yeah. And he said, I like CRAs. He said, I have seen what they do, and they do it well. One of the things he did say that might come out would be that CRAs could not give money to any elected official's business or relative elected official's business, which I'm just fine with. I think that makes sense to me. But I think there's an advocate in the Senate that's not going to dismantle CRAs. The House is a different story. Okay.
So certainly tracking those. Also, I know on your mind has been, hurricane issues as it relates to nursing homes and assisted living facilities. So there is a bill that's out right now which would require all of these medical facilities to have emergency power source and fuel that would last 4 days, keeping the ambient temperature at 81 degrees, and would require annual inspection by the Florida Public Service Commission. Also, just because you guys are going up with the county, do know that one of we have a project that's in the queue for Lake Worth Lagoon initiative funding through the county, and that's drainage improvements and improving water quality along Washington Road, so on the south end of our city. That would, decrease pollutants, improve water quality. It's third on the list for the county to advocate for those funds.
And that's going up through the county, although we're
That's correct.
Certainly in favor of that happening.
And then beyond that, then we'll, of course, we're always monitoring for things that are going to impact home rule, impact land use, think hot topics like medical marijuana, certainly the opioid-related bills. We're advocating, of course, for state aid to our libraries. So, we have a list that we're continuing to monitor. So with that, any questions?
Yeah. Commissioner James?
Gotcha.
Thank you, Mayor. One other process that we need to continue to keep our eyes on is the Constitutional Revision Committee.
All right.
And there are some proposals that seem to be making their way through the various committees. One I will call is House Bill 17 on steroids. If you recall last year, there's House Bill 17 which basically said cities couldn't do any regulation that affected business. And what the constitutional revision, at least this particular proposal, and I think it's 65 or something. In any event, whatever it is.
Yeah, I got the number when I was in Orlando.
Yeah, so
remember.
I don't know if we have lobbyists that are helping us to articulate the city's position in opposition, or how we are fighting those, Mayor, but we need to really keep our eye on that, because that will have a tremendous impact on what we're trying to do.
Very good.
Okay.
Anything else? Thank you, Rebecca.
Yeah, thank you.